It's October 20th. Stu Journalism and the New Brunswick Beacon present The Basement Tapes.
Welcome to this week's show. I'm Inda NTR.
And I'm Shane Fowler. Stay with us and our team of reporters as we get the news from campus, the city, and around the world.
Today's headlines are: global demonstrations reach Fredericton,
the public reacts to shale gas exploration,
and the SPCA is overflowed with homeless cats and dogs.
Fredericton joined the global demonstrations against corporate greed and corrupt government this weekend as part of the Occupy Together movement. What began on Wall Street has now spread and has global implications. Mark Logie has the story.
Power to the people! Power to
For days, thousands of protesters have taken to the streets in New York to demonstrate. Many of them concerned about the recession, personal debt, and an unfair distribution of wealth. Hundreds of Fredericton's concerned citizens started turning out in front of City Hall on Saturday to protest in solidarity. People like Louise Steves, who feels the need to say something in the face of climbing poverty rates.
So the reason I came out today is just because of the discrepancy between the wealthy and the poor. The gap between the wealthy and the poor is actually widening at a faster pace than it is in the U.S. And that's really alarming because we know what's going on in the States right now, and we don't want that happening in Canada.
Many people involved in the Wall Street protests set up tents with the intentions of getting arrested for civil disobedience. But Dante Folia, a former Canadian soldier, has set up a tent for administering first aid.
Well, the tent right here is our first aid station. It's also our safe area. If anybody feels like they just need to get out of the crowd for a few minutes, they can come here. If some of the kids that are playing around, eventually during the day, one of them is going to fall down and scrape their knee. The main thing that I'd like to see happen from these protests, I would like to see the people in New Brunswick more educated into the plight of the impoverished. It's something that I've noticed. It's particularly hard for the average middle class or upper class person to understand how difficult it truly is to be poor.
Some were there to speak out against the hydro-fracking issue facing New Brunswick, while others were there to bring attention to the massive debt so many Canadians are faced with.
Parents are in debt, they don't make that much money, and I knew that I'd have to go to university to get a job. Here I am in university, and now I'm getting in debt.
The Occupy movement has spread to 82 countries in over 1,000 cities and countries all over the world with varying degrees of economic stress. The protesters in New York have ignored deadlines to pack up and leave, and many are being arrested for their demonstrations, peaceful or otherwise. What changes these protests will bring remain to be seen, but many local residents have shown they aren't afraid to flex their political voice in the struggle for a more fair economy. For CBC Journalism, I'm Mark Logie.
Although in Fredericton the demonstrations were peaceful, violence broke out in other countries. In Italy, 200,000 people gathered on the streets of Rome. Police used tear gas and water cannons to separate the protesters, but they threw rocks and water bottles back at the police. Militant protesters even set cars on fire and attacked shops, causing about €1 million in damages. Russia Today reported at least 70 people were wounded on Saturday in the protests. The protests continue across North America, Asia, Australia, and Europe.
Here at the university, the academic community continues to watch the Occupy movement grow. It's not easy to predict the outcome of such movements, but it is a chance for governments to reconsider their connection to their citizens. Political science professor Mikhail Molchanov explains.
Politicians need to be reminded of the power of the people. They sometimes need to feel the strength of people's anger, to start paying attention to those who need protection of the state and who need support from the state most. And this is the most positive development, and I think it shows that people need to demand that the state acts in the best interest of the people. That should not be assumed to come automatically because of the nature of a democracy in the West.
We will have more on local protests coming up later on in the show.
We'll stay on campus with a story that students still talk about. It's been a month since the test of the waters of UNB and STU revealed high levels of lead. The new water fountains will be installed this week at STU, but students and residents are still nervous about how safe the water is. Kara Cousins has more on the story.
This is one of the 8 water fountains being replaced at St. Thomas University. The decision was made after several tested above or close to the lead limit in the guidelines for Canadian drinking water quality. Officials at St. Thomas tested the fountains in September after high lead levels were found in the water at the University of New Brunswick. The buildings affected are Vanier Hall, Holy Cross, and Edmund Casey Hall. Kim McGuire is a second-year student living in Holy Cross. She still has concerns about the drinking water.
I'll go get water out of the cafeteria, but I don't go get water out of my fountain anymore. Even though they're still the new ones, and they're supposed to have that filter in it, I just don't feel safe drinking it still.
New fountains were ordered in September at a cost of $600 each. Each one has a filter designed to reduce any toxins that may be in the water. Many students are pleased with the way the university responded. Caitlin Ward is Vanier's house president. She heard many of the concerns from students.
And they're trying to fix the issue, which is nice to see that it's happening and that it happened right away. It wasn't something that was, let go on. They did it right away. They came in, they removed them all, and now they're redoing the pipes, I believe. So.
More testing was done, and university officials say the water is safe to use. It's recommended to let the water run for 5 seconds to 2 minutes before drinking.
The City of Fredericton has been working with both universities to ensure that water coming in is safe. The source of the contamination is believed to be old pipes, soldering on joints, or old fountain parts. Bill McLean of St. Thomas University's Facilities Management says that staff and faculty should not be worried about using the remaining water sources. The new fountain should be installed by the end of next week. For Stu Journalism, I'm Kara Cousins.
As we head towards winter and flu season, flu shots will be available to all New Brunswickers. The provincial government recently backed out on its plan to cut free access to flu shots to high-risk people. Bridget Yard is at the legislature with the latest on this story.
The Department of Health has decided not to take away free flu shots from the province's most vulnerable group. High-risk people will be covered for the flu shot this year. This group includes people aged 18 to 64 with cancer, diabetes, or lung disease. Caregivers and healthcare workers who come into contact with this vulnerable group will also be covered. The cuts were proposed as a way to save money. The province was hoping to save $1 million by axing the free flu shots. Last month, the government asked New Brunswickers to submit their opinions on the proposal, which was released in August. Citizens had 30 days to respond. The Canadian Diabetes Association went public with their opposition to the cuts. They released press releases and statements saying how this could affect diabetics. In fact, one diabetic told me that he already spends $200 trying to manage his illness. $25 on top of this for a flu shot is just too much. Social media websites such as Facebook and Twitter exploded with users posting their responses to the proposed cuts. Most people were against them. Some people just couldn't understand why the government would urge them to get flu shots and then take away funding for one of the province's most vulnerable groups. If the proposal had gone through, the government would have also taken away funding for the non-surgical removal of skin lesions. Now that both procedures will be covered, the government isn't saying where they're planning to save money. Back to you.
Thank you, Bridget. A cardboard box isn't a comfortable bed, but that's what many homeless people in Canada have to sleep on. On Saturday, Fredericton residents had a taste of this life. Kyle Douglas has the story.
People of all ages and backgrounds gathered in Officers Square Saturday night. They came with sleeping bags, snacks, and warm clothing. It was the 20th anniversary of Fredericton's 12 Hours for the Homeless.
It's very roomy.
This is Youth in Transition's most significant annual fundraiser. The event itself began in Moncton. Over 40 teams collected pledges and built cardboard shelters, settling in for a night of solidarity with homeless people everywhere. St. Thomas's Rigby Hall had a group of their own.
Me and one of my friends, we went on and knocked on everybody's doors of the residents, and together we got $236.20.
The cardboard was provided by the Fredericton landfill. Afterwards, it was recycled. The money raised goes to Chrysalis House, Youth in Transition's shelter for homeless and at-risk young women. Fox FM provided music for the crowd. Despite the good mood of those who attended, the seriousness of the message wasn't lost.
And it's awesome that you get to meet your friends, but at the same time, to keep in mind why you're here. Like this is something that people have to go through every night. Like this is just something daily back for somebody else, and it's just bring awareness to that. Help your neighbor.
It's going to be a long night, but people here know that these 12 hours are nothing compared to the realities of homelessness.
From Officer Square, for Stu Journalism, I'm Kyle Douglas.
If one person can inspire many, imagine what several thousand can do. That is the message that the 25th anniversary Rick Hansen Relay hopes to bring to Fredericton. Bridget Yard here has the details.
They're energetic, they're active, and they're here to support a Canadian hero. Over 100 people showed up to welcome Rick Hansen and celebrate the 25th anniversary of his Man in Motion World Tour. This time, he had some help in the form of 7,000 medal bearers.
Later, I feel like I'm in a very privileged position because I can actually ask 7,000 people to do what I did 25 years ago, and to have an amazing team of people supporting them, and to be there at 25 key locations, congratulating, encouraging, and of course celebrating where we've been and where we're going. And it's an honor to be in this position, and every day there's an inspiration.
The medal bearers are people who make a difference in their own right and redefine what it means to have a disability. Sarah Lord was the final medal bearer in Fredericton's leg of the relay. It was an emotional experience for her.
Emotional at the end. I kind of got teary, but coming to the building, it was really fun. My family was with me and all the other people that carried the medal. It was really fun.
Mayor Brad Woodside was on hand to support the relay and accepted a ceremonial medal on behalf of the city. Courtney Keenan, representing Ability New Brunswick, praised Hansen's progress since he was last in Fredericton 25 years ago.
There's been just astronomical changes, like leaps and bounds as far as I can tell. I mean, I'm only 10 years post-injury, and what's happened in the last 10 years has been phenomenal.
For Stu Journalism, I'm Bridget Yard.
New Brunswick nurses react to their union selection of the Moncton local president. They say the application process was manipulated and that they demand action. Samantha Both has the story.
Thanks, Inda. The New Brunswick Nurses Union is hiring new executives for all its local districts. Nurses in Moncton say that the application process for their president has been unjust. A union constitution bylaw states that the president must have previous executive experience. A second bylaw also states that if no one with experience applies, the position can be open to anyone. In Moncton, no one with experience applied. On September 12th, the union sent out an email saying that the position was now open to everybody. Registered nurse Murray Moore decided to apply. Moore was at the center of conflict last year with the head union president, Marilyn Quinn, when nurses across the province threatened to bring in another union to represent them if the nurses union wouldn't work with them on a scheduling conflict. Shortly after Moore's application was received, rumors surfaced that Quinn had been talking to the union lawyers about how to get him out of the running. At 10 p.m. on October 2nd, with only 2 hours before the application deadline, someone with experience applied. The union said that Shelley Duggan won by acclamation. Now nurses are saying that Moore wasn't given his due process, and that since it was open up to everyone, he should still be considered. Nurses are calling for a vote on this issue. Marilyn Quinn will be visiting Moncton next week to decide whether it was ethical and if the nurses will be allowed to vote. Back to you in the studio.
Protests against exploration of shale gas continues across the province this week. New Brunswickers are creating roadblocks and barriers to keep the company from drilling around their homes. Kevin Stewart reports.
The protests continue here in downtown Fredericton as people of all ages have joined in the fight against shale gas. This marks the 10th Thursday straight that protesters have gathered in front of the Centennial Building, determined to get their message across to Premier David Alward and the New Brunswick government. I'm here to not only protect the water supply, but my family as well, said one single mother. Protesters are upset about a process called fracking. Fracking is when water, chemicals, and sand are pumped into the ground, cracking shale rock and releasing natural gases. Many protesters gathered here today agree that fracking is not worth the risk to the environment. They're worried about things like air pollution and water contamination. However, experts say there's no risk because fracking is done thousands of feet below the water level. Premier David Alward stands behind the shale gas industry because he believes that it will help boost the economy as well as chip away at the province's economic debt. Protesters will not be going anywhere, however, until this problem is resolved. Back to you.
Millions of BlackBerry smartphone users were left without access to their email text messages, or internet last week due to server problems. This has left many customers reconsidering the reliability of their product. Pat Brennan has this story.
I apologize for the service outages this week. We've let many of you down.
Strong words from Mike Lazaridis, founder of Research in Motion, makers of the BlackBerry. The apology comes after server problems caused widespread BlackBerry meltdowns last week. For some individuals, like fifth-year student Yannick Ochard, the system failures didn't affect them.
It didn't really affect me because I don't use BBM, since none of my friends really have BlackBerries. They mostly have iPhones or just regular phones.
However, as Aaron Mead points out, that has not been the case for others.
The type of client that usually goes for the BlackBerry phone, where they're usually more, professionally oriented, they need the ability to have their emails forwarded to their phone.
Mead is a salesman for Kudo. He says that the BlackBerry problems have drastically affected their clientele, leaving many to question the reliability of the product.
A lot of the clients are actually mentioning that it's their faith in the company and the fear of it ever happening again. So definitely we're seeing a lot of cancellations / returns for different types of handsets.
Earlier last week, RIM issued an apology and has since stated that services are fully restored. However, with competition being at an all-time high, it is hard to say whether the black eye from this incident will fade from the company anytime soon. For Stu Journalism, I'm Pat Brennan.
Until a ruling is made by the Canada Industrial Relations Board, Air Canada flight attendants cannot legally strike or lock out. CIRB has blocked a strike that the employees planned for last Thursday. Frank Moley will tell us more. Frank?
The Canadian Union of Public Employees have ended their strike last Thursday after 2 referrals were sent to the Canada Industrial Relations Board by Labour Minister Lisa Raitt. The first referral concerns Section 87 of the Canada Labour Code dealing with essential services. In her letter, the minister asked whether the employees need to maintain essential services, and I quote, to prevent an immediate and serious danger to the safety and health of the public. The second asked the board under Section 107 of the code to consider either imposing a settlement or sending the dispute to binding arbitration. Generally, the board takes weeks to come to a ruling, by which time Parliament will be back in session and back-to-work legislation is expected to be tabled. Executive Director of the Canada Industrial Relations Board, Jeanette Brazeau, said the minister's actions automatically suspend the workers' right to strike. The parties cannot resort to their right to strike or lockout until such time as the board disposes of this particular referral. This leaves 6,800 flight attendants unable to strike legally. Wildcat strikes could be an option, although some union leaders could face big fines. Such type of striking has recently been done by airport security guards employed by Garda National Security. The union accuses the minister of misusing the Federal Labour Board, which is intended to be an independent quasi-judicial body. CUPE has negotiated 2 contracts with the Montreal-based Air Canada in the last 3 months, but both have been rejected by the flight attendants.
It looks like Bob Barker's catchphrase, "Get your pets spayed or neutered," hasn't really caught on. The Fredericton SPCA is overflowing with cats and dogs looking for a home. They've recently dropped their prices in half, trying to get people to adopt. Whitney Nielsen is there with this story.
The Fredericton SPCA recently held an adoption event to entice potential pet owners and make space in the overcrowded shelter. For the month of October, cats and dogs are being sold for half price or less.
Well, we've had a big adoption event on this month where we've had reduced prices for cats, kittens, and dogs. So that has helped certainly to get the numbers down.
The shelter is out of room, but more stray animals are brought in every day. They have approximately 120 cats and 7 dogs that need homes. This is less than the start of the month, but they're still at more than double their maximum capacity.
But today we had 3 kittens come in, 5 adult cats, 2 of them which are pregnant, and a cat just seized by animal control dropped off. So as soon as we empty out, there's lots more coming in the door.
The nonprofit organization expects to see a lot more animals with kitten season and winter approaching. The SPCA relies on donations, grants, and fundraisers to pay for everything from vet bills to food. Almost all of the kittens have been adopted, but older cats like Lincoln are having trouble finding homes. Many people call the SPCA because they can no longer afford to feed their pets. The shelter is now offering to give some owners pet food so they can keep their pets at home. For Stu Journalism, I'm Whitney Nielsen.
A possible solution to SPCA's overpopulation problem is by winning a national competition. The Aviva Community Fund will award the greatest ideas to benefit charities and communities, and the SPCA is competing to get this award. Cedric Noel has more on the story.
The Fredericton SPCA is currently in a national contest to win $150,000. It's decided by online votes, and currently they're in 8th place. Votes are tallied on the Aviva website, and people are encouraged to vote daily. The SPCA Education Coordinator, Leanne Haggerty, says they always need money, but winning the top prize will allow them to expand.
Best case scenario is we'll win the $150,000 award, and with that money we plan to build an additional facility next to our current animal shelter.
This will allow them to train and house additional animals. As it stands right now, there is a waiting list for animals to get into the SPCA.
Currently we have lots of community members calling us up. They're worried about stray animals, stray cats, and unfortunately we're packed full a lot of the time, and sometimes we have to turn people away that we can't bring in other strays.
Voting for the competition goes until October 19th, after which the top 10 ideas will go to a panel of judges who will decide the winner.
We also have a voting station set up, so we have a computer in the lobby here, so we hope that everybody's going to come down and visit us and find an animal to adopt, and while they're waiting they can go onto our computer and vote.
For Stu Journalism, I'm Cedric Noel.
A verdict has been reached in an assault case involving a Fredericton resident. The case developed last August, and Vanessa Cormier has the story from the Fredericton courthouse.
Verdict was reached on the case of 31-year-old Fredericton resident Amanda Blaney. Blaney pleaded guilty to assaulting her husband on Fredericton's north side last August. The woman asked her young daughter to climb through a kitchen window and unlock the door of the house her husband was in. The little girl obeyed, and Blaney entered the house, finding her estranged husband in bed with another woman. She struck her husband 5 times in the head with a closed fist. He wasn't seriously injured. Shortly after the incident, Blaney contacted the police and was arrested immediately. Blaney said she suspected that her husband was with another woman, which is why she got her young daughter to unlock the door. She says she regrets her actions, and after a difficult life was planning to pursue a nursing degree at the University of New Brunswick. Judge Richards said violence against a partner is a serious matter. Blaney told the judge that her and her husband were trying to resolve their issues prior to the incident. Amanda Blaney has been sentenced to anger management and 12 months probation. Judge Richards also told her to keep the peace, avoid contact with her estranged husband, attend mental health counseling centers, and Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. Back to you.
Aboriginal rap is becoming more popular. For many young Aboriginal artists, this new wave of music is an expression of what's really going on within the First Nation communities. Tony Peter Paul has more on the story.
Within most First Nations, a voice can be heard. Young rap and hip-hop artists are emerging from the depths, bringing res life to reality. Caitlin Barnaby from Listagush believes it is an expression within.
In my community, there's a lot of Native rappers, young boys that I guess are really passionate about it. And when you listen to their rap, you could hear a lot of the culture and the history that they speak of.
Traditionally, Aboriginals use the drum to sing and chant about times of peace, times of war, and gatherings representing their culture. Now they have replaced the drum with modern technology. Rapper Blake Francis from Illground says to understand the present-day Native is to listen to their words.
Well, I believe that they describe everything that they see and experience, right? So like, if you want to listen to good, truthful, heartful music, then you'll listen to what somebody's saying about their community. Like
Zach Paul is a rap artist from St. Mary's First Nation. He believes that today's rap has resulted from the struggles First Nations have endured over the years.
It's our way of
expressing what we feel on the inside from the oppression of like how we feel on the reserves, growing up on reserves and stuff like that.
Aboriginal rap was planted and has now rooted out from the reserve to the music store. More music videos are being produced and seen on Much Music. The popularity of this trend has resulted from people who relate to the lyrics which represent Native culture. From Stu Journalism, I am Tony Peter Paul.
Yeah, I got that girl cause I'm all about my women and I'm all about my vision. All about winning, live like opera, kicking MCs like Beckham in soccer.
Thank you for watching the Basement Tapes.
Join us in a few weeks for the new edition.